that was kind of the first foundation. The second thing, which is foundational for me, is knowing where the chords are, kind of up and down the neck. Like, okay, let's say we're doing it in A, so you should really know where A and A7th are up and down the neck. So like at least 3 different chords, if not 4 or 5 different chords. How you can play the A7th chord in 4 or 5 different places. So here, you know, let's say this is one way to play A7th. You know, you got I'm playing the bass note here, the A bass. Let's see, get my thumb in there. So I'm just doing these 5 strings. You could do alternating bass if you wanted to get that other string, but just generally it's just 5. So that's one way to play A7th. Another way to play A7th is you bar across here and then add this. You know, that's the second way. So you got this. So that's 2 different ways you can play the A7th. Another way, you got the A, which is up here, you know, the regular bar chord, the kind of power bar chord. You can do this, and you can let go of your pinky, and now you have the A7th. So you know where the A is, you know where the A7th is. You can also add your pinky here on the 2nd string as another way to play the 7th. And then you also have up here on the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th fret, in the D chord shape, you know, the regular D chord which you play up here, but that shape played up here on the 9th fret. That's another way to play A, but if you go like this, then that's the A7th. And yet another way to play the A7th is up here. So if you have, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that's 6 ways you can play the chord A7th. Now, to me, why that's important, because I learned to play guitar seeing the shapes on, you know, the little dot, the diagrams. You know, I never used tab. You know, I can kind of decipher tab if I work at it and I go, oh, okay, you know, I can see the fingering, but tab to me is a foreign language that I never really bothered with. For me, it's just, you know, a combination of by ear and by sight. So the sight, knowing what these chords look like, and then all the way up here, you know. So if you know where multiple inversions or multiple variations of the same chord is or are in your song, then you can use that as kind of a bass line or a home bass, shall we say. I don't mean like bass guitar line, but you know what I mean, like a home bass. So let's say we're doing this. So then I know I'm in A7th somewhere, so I can go. And all I'm doing really is just adding variety to that home chord. I'm playing a piece of that chord. So all those notes which sound fancy is basically I'm in that home bass chord of A, and I'm playing a piece of it. And then you can add little textures and flavors to it. And then if you're in another place, you can be here. Here's that same chord, but in a different place. So it's just it's finding where the chords are, and then that being your home base, and then you can sort of step between and slide up. You know, like if you know that this is A, right? This is my A, and I'm pinching down. But you also know this is part of A, and you also know this is part of A. Now you have 3 places at least that you can play around with. So I'm just in those two places, now you have some interesting variety. I'm here on my home base 1, whatever you want to call it, the A, and here's another place A7 happens. And da, 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 da. I'm just adding a little da 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 da. And then you can have fun with that. So let's say you started here. And now, again, you have two places you can kind of maybe go back and forth to, and from, and slide in and out of, and just use those little, again, bases, like baseball bases, you know, first base, second base, third base. You have these sort of anchors to kind of play around in, and then jump up to another one, and then jump back, and just, you know, knowing where all those chords are just makes it more fun and interesting. So let's see. So that's just the A. Now let's say you're doing 3-chord blues, you know, the regular 1, 4, and 5, you know, the da, 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 da. Then you got the D. You know, you got the 3 chords, and then you stretch your brain a little bit, and so now you know where the D is. Here's D, D7th, D, D7th, D, D7th, D, D7th, D, D7th, D. All the different places you can play D7th. So when your song goes to that, then you could dance around that place. So you're going in the A. So all that was you know, the main chords, and then if you wanted to do solos on top of that, and you know, again, it's always knowing where those basses are. And so you're not trying to memorize a whole bunch of strings of notes. You're just memorizing a handful of home bases that give you kind of a foundation to spring from. So that's really it. I'm gonna, on top of this one, I'm just gonna make a quick little multi-track where I can do a little blues thing and finish the thoughts off in A. Something that Ray and I used to do and jam to, and we called it Tribute to Elmore, which is something off of an old Eric Clapton album, a tribute to Elmore James. And we would just call it Tribute to Elmo. Let's play Elmo. Okay, so we played it, and it was basically... repeat. So basic 12-bar blues. So I'll do a kind of a multi-track of that just for fun, and I'll include that on this video, and hopefully it helps. And then I'll do something real quick in E, which has same principles, you know, and just stringing together where, like the E up here, if we're playing in E, I like to do that little hammer on that third string. So again, it sounds fancy, but all it is you're in those home bases of E, A, and then B7. So there's a couple different ways to play each of those. So that's one way to play B7. Here's another way to play B7. Here's another way to play B7s up here. You can play it a whole bunch of different ways. So when you know where those home bases are, then you're it just makes it more fun and interesting. And that's it. All right. We'll be back in a moment after these short messages.